So today we're going to look again at some more of what Zend Studio for Eclipse can do. Specifically today we're going to be looking at team development, primarily saving code and transferring it back and forth between just getting something going here with my screen, making sure you can see it fine. Okay. Right, so right, we're going to look at source code management and team development here. There may be a little lag between my screen and what you see, so that's what I'm monitoring here. So we're looking at team development. Of course, there's many tools for that, or software repositories now. The granddaddy of them all was CVS. Then along came SVN, and nowadays there's things called Mercurial and Git and GitHub and so on. We're going to look at SVN today and how it's integrated in with Zend Studio. So, if you read other classes of mine or you've listened to them, on Zend Studio, you know that there are things called views and perspectives, and there is certainly a perspective for SVN. I have it in my perspectives bar at the top, so I just switch to SVN repository, and my perspectives, my views, switch and adjust accordingly. The code I was currently working on stays in my focus screen, so that's really not all that important when you're looking at the SVN itself. At the repository here, I have a repository set up. It's called test SVN. I click on it to expand it. You'll see that it has I'll close those code windows. Excuse me. You'll see that it has my demo code. I just put my demo projects up there. So if you know anything about SVN and version control, you know that each file or piece of information in the SVN is numbered, in this case with relation to its versioning. That is represented here with the number 1 at the end of each file, and here you can see demo code 2 has a number 2 beside it. That is me testing the update of that code back into the repository. Now when I double click on this code inside the repository, you'll see in the editor tab it says rev::HEAD, revision head. And what that's doing is I'm actually, I don't know if you heard me typing, but I've moved my cursor within the file, and I can't change the file directly on the SVN. I can highlight it and copy it if I want to, but it's all you're seeing right now is just a read-only copy of the code, and that's to protect the code. So the way we do that is we check out our projects, but I'll show you that in just a second. So we'll carry on with what we're looking at here in the repository. Now, if we want to add another repository, we just right mouse on the area that's that's in the repository browser and select the new item off the pop-up menu. We'll pick up repository location, and we put in the credentials for the new repository. I'll show you the one that we have now and its properties. location properties. So you can see I have, this is the address, here's my own custom label for it, saving my authentication so I don't have to be requested for a password every time, and so on. There's other SSH settings, advanced settings, and so on that you can control for each particular repository location. So that's setting up the SVN locations, remote locations. To check out your code, I mentioned we'd obviously have to do that. Just let me see. I think I already have it checked out. I do. So let me get rid of that. I'll just delete this project altogether. Close my head. Now, example project, I'll close these as well, just to show you that it's all coming from the repository. So this, I switched back to my PHP perspective, and you can see example project SVN does not exist there. So I'll go back to my SVN repository. I'll right mouse on it, and I will say find checkout as. It will give me a request pop-up window for what I want to call it. I'm going to call it, since I already have example project, I'm going to call it example project underscore SVN, because that's where I'm getting it from. I'll click next, and I'll say where do I want to store this. So I want to, if I don't want to use the default location, I can store it to another location if I want, but I want it in my htdocs folder so I can serve it locally if I have to. Now, before I click on that, I'm just going to cancel that for a second because I want to show you a piece as well, what's going on. So I'm going to open up another view, and it's going to be my console view. And what I show you in there, when I switch over to SVN consoles, I went to CBS, SVN. So here's my SVN console, and I wanted to show you this, that when I'm checking something out, I'll split that with the progress bar. Hopefully you can see both. So keep an eye on the progress bar and the console bar when I check out this project. So example project SVN, and I am going to click next. I'll keep it where I want to, and then you can see what's going on in the console view. So we have the files being checked out, and there's a little history of what's going on. So if you want to see what's actually going on the SVN commands, you can see them there, SVN checkout, infinity, and all that stuff. So if you ever wanted to know in depth of what's going on with a repository like SVN, kind of checkout commands and so on, keep your console open so that you can actually see what's going on, command by command. So now we should have this checked out. If I switch back to my PHP perspective, there it is, my example project underscore SVN. It's at revision 2. That's what this little number here is for. And what it's showing is the highest number of revisions. So most of them are at revision 1. Demo code 2 here is at revision 2. Therefore, the highest number is showing as version 2, or revision 2 rather, in the repository. It also has square brackets, test SVN, and Peter. It has some of the reference to what SVN repository I'm connecting to. So now I have my code checked out locally. I can open it now, and I can make changes to it here now if I want to. So this is my local copy. Of course, I just made a lot of errors in the code, but I just wanted to show you that that's now editing a local copy. I'll wipe that out. my errors will go away. So now you can see in the top corner of the file that the code is changed. As soon as I save my local copy with anything new, let me put in something new. I've just added another line to the let's repeat to this array, and we'll make this one Bob or Robert. And we'll change his phone number to 999. Again, I saved my file. Now that I've saved it, the SVN knows that it's changed locally and different from what's in the top in the repository. This is signified by a greater than symbol showing beside the file name here in the Project Explorer. Hopefully you can see that. Now the number hasn't changed yet because I haven't committed it back up to the repository. But locally, everything is aware that there are changes in my local copy. Even at the project level, there's a little greater than symbol showing up there as well. Now, we want to save our information back up to the repository. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you, open this file in the repository like I did before, and then we'll see it side by side. So now we know that the code here is, this is local, and this is on the revision on the SVN repository. So we can see that it is different. Function row colors obviously just starts on line 20 locally, and it starts on line 19 on the repository because we inserted Robert into the array list. So what we want to do then is we want to commit this. If you right mouse, oh sorry, I'll go back to PHP perspective. Now if you right mouse on the file itself, you'll see a team menu item show up, and you'll have all these options in on the pop-up list. So I'm just going to verify that you can see what I'm seeing. So under the pop-up list menu, you can see there, it's showing you now there. You can see all the other items here. Now, since this is already in the repository, all we have to do is commit it into the repository. So that's Control-Alt-C, or come this way on the menu and say team and select commit. What we can also do is on the file itself in the Project Explorer, the team menu also exists there as well. So there's a couple ways to get to it. I think there's even a menu item up here as well. I don't use it up here very much. Oh, I guess it might be under file. No. So there's either on the file itself in the project level, or right mouse on the file in question itself. Now, if you have multiple files to update, so let me open up demo code 2 as well and make a change here. We'll call this John, change that to Peter, save it. Now I have two files that should be updated in the repository. I can update them one by individually going on the file itself and select team and commit. You'll see that a window pops up for committing the one file. However, if you're doing a bunch of files, right mouse on the project name itself in the Project Explorer and select team, commit there. and you'll see all of the items that have been modified. So that's a little bit more cost effective, I guess you could say, and that you can update them more all in a bunch. So just be aware of that. If you're doing multiple updates, select the team commit from the menu, from the project itself, rather than individual files. So now let's just go individually. I want to update demo code number 2. So I'm going to update commit my changes. And here's my comments. Updated array with new record and my initials. So this is a way to add comments into your repository. If you have see a list, if there's a common one, you don't want to type something all the time, you can just pick off the standard comments, previous comments, and that can save you some typing if it's a similar project or task. So we will add that in, and we'll say OK. Keep an eye again on the console at the bottom. You'll see that it's updating and has changed its code. So svn commit down here at the bottom, here's the file of what's being changed. And then we get an OK at the end. Now, notice also that the file reference itself in the Project Explorer has now gone up to 3. And so that is its current revision level. And the project overall itself is still at revision 2. And that's because of the state it was in when you checked it out. So if you checked it out again, like a fresh checkout, it would be at 3. So it's just giving you the highest number, revision number when you checked it out. But internally, file by file, you'll see the most recent revision numbers on those files. So let's go back to the repository view and open up, let's get a refresh here. And now we can see it's at revision 3, demo code 2. If I double click on that to open it up, we'll see that Peter is now committed into that repository. So are there any questions so far? No questions? Okay. If you do have any, just type them into the question area, and I have that window open, and I'll see it as I carry on. Now, I want to show you in the profiles area, before we get too far into this, I'll just close these open files here. Under Window and Preferences, you'll see a team development area. I'll make this window a little bit bigger for you. And this is where you can control some of the options of SVN and CVS. So we have the different team tools here. There's CVS, there's Git, and here's our SVN. Now just on the main level, there's all kinds of sub-levels here, but on the main level you can have different tabs here on things that are going on with within the SVN settings. So get to know some of those and be familiar with the fact that those are here. The biggest one, or I guess not the biggest one, but a convenient one here is on the comment templates. If you're working on a particular project or task, you can add a comment. So this could be for, this is all the work related to task number 1255, and then your initials. So you can set that up as a comment template. Now, when we, and I'll just say OK to that. We'll come back and see some more of those session SVN variable values here in a minute. So I go back to my code repository, and remember we still had one file that hasn't been checked in yet or committed back in. So I can go File, Commit, and now I can pick off this template that I've already set up. I'll just let the screen display catch up here for you. So here's the template that I typed in. I can select that. It will be shown up here in my comment, and then I don't have to type the same thing all the time. So that's a little bit of a time saver for SVN commits. So go ahead and commit that. Now, as you can see here, the debug demo PHP has the number 4 beside it now, whereas code 2 has a 3. So it's a running count of the revision. Every time you do a commit to the repository, the next highest commit number is added to the files you're changing. So just be aware of that. So again, keep in mind there's your console, and you can see what's going on. And there is my comment being automatically added into that commit statement. Now, most of the things that you want to look at here, I'm just going to bring in another file from outside. I'll open this project, and we're going to bring in a new file. So I will just copy this file and drop it in SVN, and now it's called HTML class.inc. So I brought in a new file. I could create it as a new file, and again, this is local to my repository. Since it's a new file, there's no number assigned to it, no revision number, because the SVN is not aware of it yet. And there's a little question mark icon beside it. Might be a little hard to see on your screens, but to the left of the file name, the icon has a question mark on it, and that means that the repository doesn't know about it. So we can open it up, we can edit it as much as we want. We can add another comment line just to trigger a switch and update here. And I've saved it. Now, there's no revision number, no star, nothing. So if I go on the team level or the project level and select commit, it's showing me up as new. So I can commit that in. I can use my template and so on. But what we want to do is just be careful of this, is make sure it's adding it to the repository first. So under team, I'm selecting the file itself from the editor, the right mouse, team, and I'll just say see the update and so on are disabled because it's not in the repository yet. But there's an option here to say add to version control. So it's simply picking out the file that's new and trying to add it into the repository. I'll say OK. And if you watch the console again, that it didn't take very long to add that into the repository. So here it is, add to version control, SVN add. Just trying to highlight it here in the console. And there's the file. Now if we go back to the SVN repository, we'll see that it's not there on the list. We'll just have to refresh it. And it should be there. Interesting. I'm not sure why it's not there. that should be there. Let's check the version control. It said it worked. Example project is failed, HTML class.inc. Take one more refresh. Yeah, not sure why that's not showing up. It is telling me that it's added to it. Oh, I know why. Now I have to go back and commit again. My mistake, sorry. So let's go back, PHP. See, it still has the angle greater than symbol beside it, so it's a two-step process. Let's team commit now. HTML class, here's my update. Now I'll go back to the repository, refresh that, and there's my HTML class inc, and it's at revision 5. Okay, sorry about that. So it's a two-step process. I forgot about that. So you add the version control, and then you commit it. Now the team development part of this, obviously, is that we're sharing repositories. There might be multiple people using the same project, so you have things checked in and checked out. Even with, projects checked out. But even with code files being checked in and out, committed and updated from the repository, there's still some potential of stepping on each other's toes. So here's debug demo PHP. What you can also do it on team is that you can lock and unlock these files. So if you have it checked out, you can lock so that no one else can update it while you're working on it. Now the catch is to remember to clear the lock at the end of it, at the end of your work on it. So if I'm locking this file, I say OK. There's a lock statement goes up to the repository. There's a little lock symbol shows up beside my file name in my Project Explorer. And let's see if there's an update here on the repository itself. There is. Debug demo is showing that it's locked. So someone else was working on that and tried to commit changes. They'll see that it's locked and they can't use that file or update it while someone else is working on it. So again, we come in here and we unlock it. We'll say OK, and unlock command goes up to the repository. We go back to the repository, take a refresh on that, and now the lock is gone. So it's just kind of checking in and out of a library. Same idea. You take a book out of a library. No one else can use that book while you have it in your possession. You just have to remember to take it back to the library and unlock it. So any questions on that so far? Okay, no questions. So what we're looking at now is I just want to give you some ideas here on rearranging your perspective, your code editing perspective in relation to coding with a repository. So I've already mentioned that the console view is quite handy. The progress view is quite handy as well. We don't need the debug output necessarily because we're not necessarily debugging. The history view is also very helpful. So I'm going to open up some views and try and find the history view. Now that would be under SVN, specific views. No, it's not, under team. There it is, team history. So if I'm open up the history view, of course there's nothing in it right now because the repository has not been changed right now. So let me add a change. I'm going to get rid of this line here for Robert. I'll save it. I will commit it. I'll use my template for comments and commit it in. Now inside my history view, maybe there's data when you, okay. So if I click on right mouse on this file and I look with compare with local history, that's where I get my history data. So it's a file by file basis here. So now I can see my revision history as I go back. So let's see what my file looked like. If I double click on that, a very neat display is showing up, and this is comparing my file from now, what it is now, to what it was before. So here's on the left side, here is my existing code. On the right side, there is my altered code. Excuse me. As you can see, there's not much difference here because I went back to how it was in the past. So let's see. There's one that's changed. So here you can see the difference between the Robert line is in my history, but it's not in my current version. So that's a local history comparison. Now you can also compare, I'll close that off, you can also compare with the latest from the repository. Now this should not be that much of a change because there's no differences between the selected inputs. Alright, because we committed it back in. If you look at your revision history now, your history view, you can see that here's the comments and so on of what's going on. And there's 9 changes since the current version, if I look at that. So if I double click on the item 1, it'll bring it in from the repository, but it's the same as where I came from. So let's try number 4. There we are. So this is a comparison of what's on the repository versus what's local. So you can see in the top file name it says in square brackets after the file it says local, and in square brackets after the file above it shows revision 4. So here I'm comparing against the repository history, revision 4 versus what I have locally. So you can trace back some different ones, different versions if you want, and see the difference file changes in each one. So if I go back to the repository view, I'll close this comparison. The synchronized view, let's try and open that one. There it's under team as well. So it says this view is not populated on startup. You can choose to populate it. Or just synchronize. I'm not viewing the whole page here. That's CVS, so we want to go SVN. I'm going to click, well, this is CVS, so it's not responding right now to SVN. I'll check my preferences. Okay, well, that synchronized view is obviously more suited to CVS. I'll just have to, I'd have to look into that one. But what that will do is it's very similar to the history, and it'll help you to synchronize your code. The same is similar to doing a SVN update. The other view that you might want to look at in relation to team development is the task view. So let's look at the view here, tasks. And what this does, I don't have any tasks right now, but there's a way to, with your team, to assign tasks. Let's assign a task to do display workers, maybe here, double slash to do, Peter to update the display with better colors. I'll just tab that over. And I will save it. Now I have a to-do, and it's for me. What I can do is I can export those tasks via XML. And I forget where it is. File, export. Sorry, I just misplaced how to export these to-do lists. Sorry, that was the wrong button. Well, I'm sorry. Maybe, and again, this is a little bit new to me from version 9 of Zend Studio. Maybe they've moved it and I can't quite find it. Might be under preferences. Well, I can't find it right now, I'm sorry. But there is a way to export and import tasks, and that's a way to share them with the team. Oh, here. Export. There we are. My apologies. So I found it. It's on the PHP Explorer. You right mouse there and select export, and there's your task, list of tasks to export, and it exports it as a zip file here in this case, or a XML. And the reverse of that is you right mouse on it, project, and you say import, and you can import tasks as well. So that's where that is. Oh yes, other possible things for team development are the remote system. So if you have FTP work, here's a few of my locations that are external on remote FTP servers. Same idea, you can check those out. It's not a code repository like SVN or CVS or Git, but it does allow multiple people to go in and change files remotely. You can see the properties here on this one. There's FTP settings, and there's your hosts, and so on. The other interesting thing is the code gallery. If you find that, I think there's a view here. It's code gallery. There is a place if you have a bunch of nice, I'll show you the preferences of it here. You can create your own code gallery if you know how to set it up on a URL, but there's two that already exist. Well, there's one, your local one, and then there's one that Zend has for you. So if you think this function is great, you can highlight it, copy it. Here's our user code gallery. Add a new entry, drop our code in here. Add who it was. Name is display workers function. And this is a function to display workers. And we'll say OK. Now, I have this display workers. I can use that, open that up in another file if I want to. Go in a new file, and I can insert that code into that file. So that's a way to share common functions or common code blocks or projects or code libraries, and you can, I think you can export those as well. Just have to kind of look. No, I guess there's not, you can't export that through this way. But there is another code gallery that Zend hosts, and let's see if I can remember where that is. It's adding a new one. Configure code galleries. I guess Zend must have removed theirs. There used to be one where Zend would have a code library of common functions and that everyone can use worldwide. So it's I don't seem to be able to locate it there just now, so it might have been discontinued. So that's basically all we have on code, on commenting, on SVN and code repositories and project management within a team. There's all kinds of other things you can do to enhance this with, if you look at Mylin and the task viewer, You can tie that in with Bugzilla and other locations, but that's a longer discussion for another time. So before we sign off, are there any last questions on checking in, checking out, committing, locking, and so on? No questions? Okay. Well, thank you for your time. Tomorrow we're going to look at, it's our last class, tomorrow we're going to look at just some other neat things you can do with Zend Studio, some different editor tools and some PHP doc items and some online, inline documentation and some things like that. Just things to make Zend Studio really come alive, so to speak. So it's going to be a mixed bag of a whole bunch of tips and tricks. So hopefully we'll see you all online tomorrow, same time, and thank you for your time and attention today. Bye for now.